I didn't wake up one day and realize I had ruined my life. That's not how it happened. It happened slowly, in ways that felt harmless at the time, in choices that seemed reasonable, in decisions people praised me for making. When I was young, people often told me I was mature for my age. I took that as a compliment. Later, they called me reliable and settled. I didn't realize until much later that what they were really describing was someone who had stopped listening to himself. At 76, I can finally say this without pretending. It took me 55 years to understand what those words actually cost me. And if you're listening to this thinking, I still have time, I need you to know that those exact words lived in my head for most of my life. I grew up believing life followed a simple formula. You study, you work hard, you stay out of trouble, and eventually everything you want will fall into place. Dreams, happiness, fulfillment, all of it felt like something you earned later, after you proved you were responsible enough. So that's what I did. I chose the safe path every time. I avoided risks, avoided conflict, avoided anything that might make people uncomfortable. I told myself I was being smart, that patience would protect me, that waiting was the mature thing to do. What no one tells you is that life doesn't punish bad decisions right away. It punishes hesitation quietly. Years pass, routines harden, and one day you'll realize you've built a life that looks fine from the outside but feels empty when you're alone with your thoughts. I postponed almost everything that truly mattered to me. Travel became something I would do once work slowed down. Personal projects became something I would start once I felt more secure. Honest conversations were delayed because I didn't want to upset anyone or create tension. There was always a reason to wait, and every reason sounded logical in my head. But what I didn't understand back then was that waiting doesn't freeze life in place. It moves forward without you. By the time I felt ready, my energy wasn't the same. My curiosity wasn't as sharp. And fear had quietly reshaped itself into what I called common sense. Here's something that took me decades to admit, even to myself. Being responsible can become a very convincing excuse for being afraid. I didn't fail because I tried and lost. I failed because I never fully committed to trying. I avoided embarrassment. I avoided uncertainty. I avoided disappointing people whose opinions I valued far more than my own. And over time, without noticing it, I learned how to live in a way that kept everyone else comfortable while slowly disconnecting me from myself. The moment I truly understood this didn't come with drama or tragedy. It was small, almost forgettable. I was in my early 60s, cleaning out old boxes I had carried from house to house for years. At the bottom of one box, I found a notebook from my 20s. Inside were ideas I had written down. Things I wanted to learn, places I wanted to see, risks I wanted to take someday. I remember sitting there quietly, turning pages, realizing that the man who wrote those words believed his life was just beginning. It wasn't. It already had, and I had missed most of it by waiting for the right moment. Another truth I learned too late is this: trying to please everyone slowly teaches you how to disappear. I spent years saying yes when I meant no, staying silent when something mattered to me, and choosing harmony over honesty. I convinced myself it was kindness, but in reality, it was fear wearing good manners. The people who benefited from my silence moved on with their lives. They built careers, families, memories, and I was left holding the consequences of choices I made to keep the peace. No one comes back later to thank you for not speaking up. You're the one who carries that weight alone. So what is the one thing it took me 55 years to learn? Time doesn't reward patience the way we think it does. It rewards action. Waiting does not make life safer. It makes possibilities smaller. The window doesn't slam shut dramatically. It closes inch by inch, quietly, while you're busy convincing yourself that tomorrow will be easier. One day you're too busy, one day you're too tired, and then one day you're too late. I used to think fear was my biggest obstacle. I believed that if I could just eliminate fear, everything else would fall into place. I was wrong. Comfort is far more dangerous than fear. Fear is loud. It warns you. Comfort is quiet. It tells you everything is fine exactly the way it is, even when something inside you knows it isn't. Comfort doesn't stop you abruptly. It slowly convinces you that this is as good as life gets. If you're younger and listening to this, I know part of you probably thinks I'm exaggerating. I thought the same when older people spoke like this to me. I assumed they were bitter or dramatic or simply looking back with regret that didn't apply to me. But regret rarely comes from doing something and failing. It comes from never giving yourself the chance to fail at all. You won't feel it now. You'll feel it later, when change costs more than you're willing or able to pay. I also believed time was guaranteed, that there would always be another season, another opportunity, another version of myself who was braver and more prepared. What actually happens is simpler and harsher. Energy fades, curiosity dulls, and the risks you once could afford start to feel unbearable. You don't lose dreams because you get older. You lose them because you keep postponing them until they no longer feel like they belong to you. If I could go back, I wouldn't chase success or stability the way I did. I would chase discomfort. I would speak sooner, leave earlier, and start things before I felt ready. Readiness is a story we tell ourselves to avoid responsibility for our own lives. No one ever feels ready. They just move forward anyway. Now, at 76, people sometimes ask me if I have regrets. I don't regret mistakes. I regret silence. I regret the conversations I avoided, the risks I talked myself out of, and the life I kept preparing for instead of living. You don't get extra credit for being careful. You just get older. If this made you uncomfortable, that's not a bad thing. Discomfort is information. It's your mind telling you something still matters. Listen to it now, while you still can. Fear at 25 saves lives at 70. I waited 55 years to learn this. Please, don't waste yours.